Welcome back to another episode of Swamp Stories. For this video, we cover a major story in the recent news. But before we get into it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're new. You can also follow the Instagram page as well. So let's get into it. Over the last 10 years, New York City has been one of the safest cities in America. In fact, in some years, it's had lower crime than European cities like London and Paris. Much of this is attributed to cameras, strict laws, and district attorneys actually prosecuting crime. Because of this, being a criminal in New York is one of the dumbest things a person can do. There's no getting away with anything. It's just a matter of time before your name pops up in the next indictment. This all reigns true even for the worst part of the city, which happens to be the Bronx. Believe it or not, the big bad Bronx has a lower homicide rate than Seattle and even San Diego in 2022. But for this video, we focus on Brooklyn, specifically the Flatbush neighborhood. Historically, the neighborhood has been a stronghold for Crips, but in typical New York fashion, everything changes by generation. And for this generation, things are complicated and pretty messy. As police explain it, everything goes by specific buildings and specific blocks. For example, one set will claim a building and their rivals will claim the building directly across the street. None of it makes sense to outsiders, but in New York, that's just how things operate. Well, starting around 2014, Flatbush became divided into 4 sections, all claiming different buildings. First, you have the insane Crips, also known as the ICG Babies. The Babies cover 2 very small sections of Flatbush. One is a small project located on 131 East 21st Street. This is their main territory and it's known as the Castle. Next, they have a small territory located on Crown Street, which is known as their second hood. ICG happen to be the smallest set and have the least territory in Flatbush. Next, you have the Folk Nation Gangster Disciples, who are spread out throughout Flatbush. The set originated in Chicago and made their way into New York City in the 1990s. Well, in Flatbush, they cover 4 different sections: H Block, NLC, Ebbets, and most importantly, the 50s. Well, ICG Babies and the Folk Nation are both rivals of the next 2 sections. First, let me introduce you to the 9 Ways G-Stone Crips. These guys hold down the largest single territory of them all, and this territory happens to be the most treacherous as well. On top of this, these guys are known to cause problems anywhere they go. And finally, we have what everyone is here for. The TREY Crips are easily the biggest and baddest section of them all. Their first territory is known as the Cadden TREY, located in East Flatbush. The large territory actually has the ICG Castle located right in the middle of it, which makes things complicated. Next, you have the 40s and finally the flossy 80s. Well, with 9 ways and all of these TREY sections together, it makes for a pretty powerful force. And according to police, they're all led by a very important man. Let me introduce you to Michael Williams, commonly known as Sheff G. Sheff was raised on Church Avenue and came under the man who's credited with bringing TREY to Brooklyn. Well, in his teenage years, Sheff G began rapping and gained a major buzz throughout the city. And quickly after just a year of rapping, he began getting 5 to 10 million views on each of his songs. Personally, I can say that he's one of the only New York drill rappers that isn't a complete joke. But he isn't the only popular rapper in the TREY circle. By his side is another popular rapper named Tegan Chambers, commonly known as Sleepy Hollow. And just like Sheff G, this guy blew up in music as well. Together, the two began taking over the drill scene, but little did people know they were also living wild lives in the streets. It all began in the spring of 2019 when 9 Ways and TREY officially clicked up. This was a force to be reckoned with, but it wasn't exactly the smartest group of men. In March of 2019, Sheff G decided to make a group chat with all of the TREY and 9 Ways members. And to clarify, this wasn't Jack phones or WhatsApp, this was everyone's personal iMessage. To make matters worse, inside the group chat they discussed the specifics on when and where they're gonna slide on the rivals. And on the morning of May 24th, 2019, Sheff G would make a Facebook post that kicked everything off. The post stated 4 gang, allegedly egging on members to make a move. And later that night, a move would be made. 10 p.m. A 9 Ways member named SHOMARI Hudson takes a trip down to the Folk Nation 50s. After running up and down their blocks, he finally notices a member on Clarkson Avenue. And that's when he makes his move. Thankfully, the man was okay, but for some reason, SHOMARI didn't think this was the case. Only 30 minutes after doing this, SHOMARI would text the group chat. He said, "I just made hot in the 50s, check the Citizen app. For people who don't know, the Citizen app is an alert system where people can see police reports in real time. Well, about an hour later, the TREY and 9ways members would respond telling him that he didn't do a good enough job. So to prove his worth, SHOMARI would slide again 2 days later, March 26, 2019. SHOMARI runs down to the 50s again, but this time he hits nothing but plywood and decides not to text the group chat. Well, in typical New York fashion, nothing would happen over the next year except for numerous diss tracks and multiple social media posts. First, a 9ways member named Mark Wright would post on Facebook saying free all my ops and when they get home they get popped too. Then an TREY member named RJ Flossie would say when I spin the Veers I bet I make it back. This refers to the Vanderveers estate, a Folk Nation project. Well, after posting this he would actually come through on his promise. August 6, 2020. RJ Flossie drives to the Folk Nation area in a rented Mercedes C300. He passes through the infamous Vanderveer estates where members can usually be found, and on Foster Avenue he spots 5 rival members outside. Thankfully, nothing was hit but plywood, but for some reason, RJ Flossie thought differently. Later that night, he would text the group chat and tell them to check the Citizen app. After finding out that no one was hit, let's just say that Sheff G was not pleased. Even though he was making major bags in music, his mind was still in the streets of Brooklyn. Overall, he was not satisfied with what his squad was doing. So in September of 2020, he decided to help out all of his members. To do this, he got in contact with another TREY set. Somehow, Sheff G was able to get in contact with the TREY Crips in Sumter, South Carolina, and after befriending them, he was able to get them to drive up to New York City with all kinds of blowers. The guys in Sumter would legally purchase them there and then flip them to Sheff G for double. On September 19th, the delivery would arrive, and Sheff G would then make a terrible decision. He would take a picture of all the items and send it to the group chat. He would then say, when we touch, it's Royal Rumble. The message had many of the members excited and ready to go. Of course, one of these was RJ Flossie, and he was the first member to respond. The next day at 12:50 p.m., he texts his fellow member Shamar Brown, also known as Dottie. He asks him, yo, what's the wave today? Are we hunting or nah? Dottie responds with a simple answer, duh. Now that members were ready to slide, all they needed was a car to do it in. So at 6:30 p.m., 5 members meet up and run around Brooklyn looking for a car to take. At 6:37 p.m., they notice a Mercedes S550 left unattended. The members then look at the specialist Dottie and tell him to go get it. So at 6:45 p.m., Dottie runs out, hops in the car and drives away. The members planned to use this car to slide on rivals, but unfortunately for them, Dottie was pulled over shortly after and sent to jail. Well, with Dottie gone, they needed another member to step up and replace his car-taking skills. And finally, after a month, a few members would step up and go looking for cars. October 19th, 2020, 5:45 p.m. JJ Bands and Smalls run around Brooklyn looking for cars. At approximately 6:30 p.m., they notice a white Jeep Grand Cherokee with the door open. And that's when they put on their ski mask and gloves and decide to go. After a tussle with the owners, the members are able to take the Jeep and get away. At 7:15, the members park the Jeep in the projects and go up to an apartment. There, they plan their next mission, but that's when they receive an alarming text. At 8:21 p.m., Sheff G sends a message to the group. He says, bro, Billy just got Billy's real name is Kamandre Dekatu, and he's possibly the most feared TREY member. While the other members were taking the car, Billy was targeted outside of his residence. Thankfully, the Folk Nation members pulled a Game 6 Klay Thompson and they didn't hit anything. Still though, Sheff G was pissed and he urged his members to make a statement back. Well, Billy himself took no time to get back and he instantly contacted JJ and Smalls to use their Jeep. 9:07 p.m. Billy slides around the Folk Nation area in the stolen Jeep with nothing but anger and vengeance on his mind. At 9:32, he spots rival members outside on Pitkin Avenue, and that's when he rolls down his window. Thankfully, Billy pulled a Ben Simmons and only hit a few bricks in the distance. Well, after returning home, Billy and his fellow members would have a FaceTime call where they would discuss their next moves. The new plan was for a member named G Gill to drive and for Billy to bounce out on foot. But after ditching the white Jeep, the members needed another car. And that takes us to 2 days later on October 21st, 2020. At 3 p.m., G Gill heads down to 128 Rockaway Boulevard in Queens. That's where he notices an unattended Infiniti Infiniti G35. He puts his mask on, sprints over to the car, and hops in. He speeds away and texts Billy, "Where you at?" At 5:08 p.m., Billy responds 1784 Broadway Boulevard. So G. Gill pulls up on him, and for the next 2 hours they plan their mission. For whatever reason, G. Gill decides not to tag along, so Billy goes alone. At 10 p.m., Billy hops in the Infiniti and heads over to the Folk Nation area. And at 10:15, he arrives at 285 Hawthorne, a known Folk Nation hangout spot. Outside, he spots a crew of rappers and Folk Nation members. So that's when he hops out. Bam! Billy drives away and is able to make it home. About 30 minutes later, Sheff G texts the group chat with a simple question. The next morning, everyone learns that a Folk Nation member named Sniper Blicky was the victim. And that's when Billy and G. Gill go on Instagram Live screaming GDK and throwing up signs. Little do they know NYPD is in the live as well, but we'll save that for later in the video. In the meantime, Sheff G decided to host a lavish dinner at a steakhouse in Manhattan. About 10 to 12, TREY and 9 Ways members were there, and it's alleged that the dinner was to celebrate Billy's actions. While all of this is going on, Sheff G is blowing up musically like never before. And with all this rap money, he smartly decided to move out of the hood. He decided to purchase a nice home about an hour west of New York in the nice suburb of Short Hills, New Jersey. The house quickly became the new hangout spot for TREY and 9 Ways members. Members were allowed to spend the night and kick it for as long as they want. This gave them the leverage to hide out for weeks on end, making it nearly impossible for the rivals to find them. Because there are so many suburbs around New York, a rival could never find them. The only way would be if A, the members posted their location, B, if a female they're dealing with exposes where they are, and C, if there's a snake within the circle. Sadly, one of these would reign true. Now I want you to guess which one it is. The answer is C. An unnamed TREY member was jealous about money and decided to reveal their location to the rival ICG babies. In early April of 2021, the member decided to give them Sheff G's location, and that takes us to April 5th, 2021. It's a regular Monday night in the quiet Short Hills, New Jersey, and the TREY members are hanging out at Sheff G's house. Little do they know the ICG babies are parked across the street waiting for someone to step outside. After hours of waiting, the members get tired and decide to go to their last resort, so they roll down their windows and bam! Thankfully, everyone was okay, but the incident shook up Sheff G. The members were confused on how they got their location, as they were always sure of who was in and out. Well, later that night, an TREY member named LV Brim would text the group chat that they need to get back on timing. At 2:30 a.m., Sheff G would respond, "Tomorrow we on it." LV Brim then responds, "Say no more, I think it was ICG who did it." 3 minutes later, Sheff G would respond, "I'm getting a rental in the morning and we spinning." The next morning, Sheff G would go big or go home. April 6, 2021. At 3 p.m., Sheff G leaves an exotic rental place in a Jeep Trackhawk. From there, he heads directly to the TREY territory in Brooklyn. He then picks up 3 members, Mick, LV Brim, and Torch. Then, from inside the car, the members discuss their plans. After finalizing their plans, Sheff G hops out and calls an Uber back home to New Jersey. From there, the other TREY members begin spinning around the ICG territory. At 4:33 p.m., the members spot rivals outside on Canton Avenue, and that's when Torch lets off his torch. Thankfully, everyone, including the ICG member, were okay. Well, after doing this, they all speed off in the Trackhawk to 481 Washington Avenue. This is where they park the car and all call Ubers to go home to Short Hills, New Jersey. But before they can leave, Sheff G texts the group chat to wipe off the car. So the members get wet wipes and wipe everything down. Then an hour and a half later, they all arrive at Sheff G's house. There they learn that all of the members were okay, and according to police, Sheff G was not happy. He really wanted that to be a successful mission, and he was disappointed in his members. A couple weeks later, he would text the group chat, "Y'all be taking years, you see why I just want to do it myself." He then said if G Gill want to go on foot, I'll bring him to the babies myself. No members would volunteer to slide, as they all wanted to lay low. And that's when Sheff G really started getting frustrated. 10 days later, on April 23rd, he texts, "On Grandpa, let's get this done. I got $5,000 for you." And that's when LV Brim volunteers to slide. Then right after him, Dottie, Ace, and JJ Bands volunteer to slide as well. So the same night at 7:30 p.m., the 4 members get together to plan. At 9:32 p.m., they arrive in the ICG territory on McDonald Avenue. They spot a bunch of ICGs outside, and that's when the 4 members hop out. Thankfully, everyone was okay, and the TREY members were able to get away. They parked the car on 456 Brooklyn Avenue, wiped it down, and took an Uber back to Short Hills. While at the house, they realized that they made a terrible mistake. One of the members named Ace had left his ID in the stolen car they used. Now they knew that it was only a matter of time before police found out. So with their fingers crossed, all of the members decided to lay low and relax in New Jersey. During this period, Sheff G would focus on music and stacking his money. But then on June 21st, 2021, crazy information was discovered. This is the day when TREY learned that one of their members had gone behind their back and given their location to the ICG babies. Now this is something that all of the members could get on board with. They all wanted to punish this member. So after kicking him out of the group chat, they all decided what they were gonna do. Later that night, a bunch of members would get in 3 separate cars and go to his residence. There they would call him outside and then chase him down the street. After catching up to him, they would all jump in. But after 10 minutes, they began hearing sirens, and that's when they all hopped in the cars and drove away. At this point, members recognized that everything was falling apart, so they decided to lay low and let things settle. For Sheff G, he was in the midst of fighting a case from August of 2020. So this means that while all of this was going on, Sheff G was actually out on bond. While after a year of court dates, Sheff G was sentenced to 2 years in prison in September of 2021. While he was away, most of the members decided to lay back. That would be except for LV Brim, G Gill, and the infamous Dottie, who was released in early 2021. For them, just because Sheff G was gone did not mean that the beef was over. December 27th, 2021. At 2:30 p.m., LV Brim walks over to the Folk Nation territory by himself. While walking down the 1800 block of Nordstrand, he notices a rival member, and that's when he chases him down the street. Thankfully, the man would be okay, and LV Brim knew that he had messed up. He didn't plan this out, and he had no exit plan. Somehow though, he was able to make it home by running through alleys. After making it home at 4 o'clock, he would text the group chat, "I just did some hot SMH." But unfortunately, he wouldn't be the only member to do something wild. January 11th, 2022. Dottie, Taffy, and G Gill all meet up at G Gill's apartment. There at 7 p.m., they begin getting ready to slide in the ICG territory. At 7:40, they leave the apartment and head over to the rival territory. They notice members outside and they chase them into the buildings. And inside the lobby, things get wild. Thankfully, no one was hit, but G Gill would fall while running and injure his leg badly. In the process, he dropped his phone, and this is how he was arrested the next day. From inside his cell, Sheff G knew that things were crumbling down, so somehow he was able to text the group chat while behind bars and tell them to wipe all of their phones. Little did he know NYPD could access this information regardless. Well, with Sheff G and G Gill behind bars, the other TREY members began getting nervous for their fates as well. In fact, in May of 2022, an argument broke out in the group chat about whether the police can uncode their messages or not. A member named Smalls would say the police can't understand that shit, bro. Unfortunately for him, they definitely can. Over the next year, police would investigate the TREY and 9 Ways Crips. They would take their time to build the strongest case possible for the DA. According to the police chief, there could have been hundreds of arrests, but they decided to focus on the most important factors. During the investigation, they were granted access to all of the members' phones. So for months and months, investigators went through the group chat looking for information. They then were granted surveillance footage from every single incident and the residences where all of the members live. From this, they were able to track nearly every single move that TREY did. This all made for possibly one of the easiest cases in American history. On May 16, 2023, 32 TREY and 9 Ways members were arrested. In total, there are 140 felony charges, all ranging from 1 to 30 years each. From what it seems, Sheff G is being painted as the leader and orchestrator, kind of like Young Thug in YSL. And in my opinion, Sleepy Hollow is kind of like Gunna. He didn't do anything, but he's being blamed for being an associate. And it's honestly sad that this is coming at such a crucial time in his career. But again, this is another lesson for people to stay out of the streets. The way I see it, generational wealth is being stopped because of of dumb decisions, especially in New York City, which is the last place you want to get caught. Well, that's gonna do it for this episode of Swamp Stories. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Peace!